Hello all, and this is how modes became the modern scales that we know of today. Around the time of Bach and Buxtehude, which these two were two main composers of the Baroque and classical realms, the perfect tonal system was invented. Okay, so around this time, we have the measurement of different tones on the keyboard. Keep in mind also that Cristofori was the inventor of what we now have as the piano or the keyboard that we know of today in the 18th century, I believe. And around that time, 1700s, what people were discovering is there was a measurement of tones and intervals that were grouped into a series or set or pattern that could easily be followed. There was this urge to make an easy pattern that doesn't change, that's perfectly symmetrical, that could make the harmony and the melody of composition revolutionized. So what they called this was the equal temperament or equal tempered system. If you want examples of even-tempered music, or the first even-tempered music, rather, I would advise you to check out Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. It's a set of pieces in every major and minor key that there is. From C to C, all 12 tones are accounted for. That would give you a great glimpse into how to write for these different tones. The measurement of tones, what we call the semitone today, was developed around this time. And it actually exists of both whole steps, what are called whole steps, which would be a major second in interval parlance, and a half second, which would be a minor second in interval parlance. So this calls for each note to be a set distance apart, like I just explained. The recording order, or the recurring order rather, of the scales would be whole step, whole step, whole step. Oh, sorry, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. All right? So if we were to take the C major scale, we would discover that there's a whole step relationship followed by a half step between E and F, and then F to G would be a whole step, G to A would be a whole step, A to B would be a whole step, and the last one from B to C would be a half step. So whole, half, whole, half. That's the pattern. Okay, now I have the claviatura up, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the C scale, and we're gonna check out the intervals. Okay, so that was the first scale, basically, that is created. The Ionian scale, or the Ionian mode, is what it's derived from. And what we encounter interval-wise is a major second from C to D, major second from D to E, half step, which is a minor second from E to F, because there's no black notes on that area of the piano. Then F to G, whole step, G to A, whole step, A to B, whole step, C, or B to C rather, half step. And the reason why they're whole steps and half steps is because when they invented the piano, they had the white natural notes and the black accidentals on the piano to go along with that whole, half, whole, half scenario of intervals. So if we were to take this, that whole, whole, half pattern, and we were to apply it starting on D, well, you would need a whole step from E to F or E to F sharp, E to F sharp. Now you need a half step in the pattern, F sharp to G. G to A is a whole step. A to B, whole step. B to C, whole step. C sharp to D. So I meant to say C sharp on that last one, C sharp. So if you apply that whole, half, whole, half step thing to the D tonality, the D scale, you would get that scale resulting. Same thing if you were going to go G scale. So ready? So G to A, major second, remember our intervals. A to B, major second. B to C, half step, minor second. C to D, major second. D to E, major second. E to F sharp, major second. And then F sharp to G. Alright, and that's a half step. That's from F sharp to G. So, they basically put together a pattern that is perfect, at least to them, around all the tonal areas that you could have on the piano. And that's how they mapped it out. The modes were the first precursors of that, but those were all natural notes. Those had no accidentals, no sharps, no flats. But then they wanted an equal system so that people wouldn't be confused, and they would have just an equal temperament all around. They would have the 12-tone system, which is basically the 12 tones or the 12 semitones of the chromatic scale. They wanted all of this to count. And in order to get those 12 perfect semitones, that's what we have, black versus white keys on that. So now, when we talk about scales, we can say, okay, whole, half, whole, half. That's, that's the major scale that we know today. Minor scales are a little bit different. That deserves its own lecture. But if you have any questions on this, if you want me to go into further detail, please be sure to comment, and I will see you in the next session.